if you're an entrepreneur or you're an investor, you have to have a 10-year time horizon. And nothing great is accomplished without a decade. If you look at Microsoft, the company's founded in the mid-70s, a decade later in their mid-80s, If you're not willing to hold Microsoft stock for a decade, you probably didn't get to the point where they came public. So a decade's a short period of time for someone who's an industrialist or an investor. I mean, Warren Buffett still owns Coca-Cola stock, and he must have bought it 50 years ago, right? So I think that anybody that's a billionaire, right? All of these names, the Sergey Brins, the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Jeff Bezos, the Elon Musks of the world, they didn't get there without holding an asset that had technical potential for a decade or longer. There's no get-rich-quick scheme. So I think that people want an easy route. If you're trying to get a quick win with no volatility, with no risk, doesn't make sense. And if you're actually trying to be successful in a hurry with volatility, that probably still won't work either. I mean, ultimately, success comes from taking a decade-long view, right? We forget, like, Tesla was founded 20 years ago. People think it's an overnight success, but it's not an overnight success. We decided to buy Bitcoin, and we bought $250 million of Bitcoin August 10th, 2020. And then around September 10th or so of 2020, we bought another $175 million of Bitcoin or something like that. And then we started buying Bitcoin more in December, and we kept buying Bitcoin. We ended up buying nearly $4 billion, $3.97 billion of Bitcoin over that time period. In terms of like our strategy, MicroStrategy has just bought as much Bitcoin as we get our hands on since August 10th of 2020. And in that time period, stocks gyrated north, they gyrated south, currencies have changed. So let me tell you what's happened. MicroStrategy stock, our stock is up 94% since that day. Bitcoin is up 77% since that day. The S&P index is up about 18%. The NASDAQ index is up 7.5%. Gold is down 16%. The bond market, if you just bought bonds, they're down 18%. Bonds are down 18%. And silver, if you think silver was better than gold, it's down 32%. Now, if you go on and say, okay, well, fine, let's just buy big tech. If you had bought the greatest of the big tech companies is Google. Google is up 41%, Apple is up 39%, Microsoft's up 22%. You might have won. Those were all better investments than the S&P. Much better than NASDAQ, much better than gold. Not as good as Bitcoin, not as good as MicroStrategy. But if you bought Amazon, you're down 18%. That was overvalued in the summer of 2020. A bunch of 20-somethings were just buying Amazon because they thought, well, we're all ordering Amazon stuff, so it must be good. Well, when you buy something that everybody else understands to be good at the same time they all agree with you, it's normally bad. Facebook is down 41% since then. Netflix is down 54% since then. So half the big tech got shellacked. The other half did pretty good. And now, last point, what if you bought enterprise software? We compete against companies 100 times as big as us. Oracle, SAP, Microsoft. Oracle is up 39%, IBM's up 6%, Salesforce is down nearly 20%, SAP is down 45%. So, summary for us, MicroStrategy's strategy was buy as much Bitcoin as you can and buy it with equity and debt. We borrowed money. We borrowed $2.2 billion at a blended interest rate of like 2% or 1.8%. So we borrowed cheap money while money was cheap, and we bought Bitcoin. Now people are saying, that's stupid because Bitcoin was trading up and then it traded down. At the end of the day, if your time horizon is a decade or longer, if you can borrow the money for longer than 5 or 6 years and you can hold it through the volatility, then raising cheap money, grabbing billions of dollars at low interest, and then investing in a scarce, desirable asset that's got sort of a technology appeal and holding it for a long period of time, that's going to be a good strategy. That's why our stock is outperforming Bitcoin. That's why we're outperforming all the enterprise software companies, all the big tech companies. And the reason Bitcoin's outperforming all the other asset classes is because it's scarce, it's desirable, it's technical. No one's going to write a piece of software to make gold better. You're not going to put gold on 1 billion iPhones. Whereas Lightning is a protocol that's been rolling out lately. Square Cash App or blocked Cash App put Lightning right into Cash App. It means that you can send $100 of Bitcoin to anybody in the world on a Saturday afternoon for less than a penny, instantly, peer-to-peer. We live in a time of unprecedented public intervention in the affairs of the economy. We have politicians overriding the free market. They tell you what kind of energy you can use. They tell you, how far you have to sit from someone. They tell you whether it's safe to be sitting in your office at a table next to someone. Lots and lots of encroachment. So if the government keeps suppressing the free market everywhere, what you do is you cripple production. When a government declares a war, they basically put public policy initiatives ahead of the interest of the free market, right? So if I declare a war, I could just draft every single adult in the country, put them in the military, send them off. And if I lose the war, they're all dead, right? What's it do to the economy? The economy crashes, right? What's it do to the prices? The price of everything go up. If you want to create inflation, you do it a couple of ways. Either you cut the supply, or you cut the supply of the product you want to buy, or you increase the supply of the money that's available to buy it with. So if I make it illegal to manufacture food, the price of food's going up. Right? I don't even need to print more money, right? I can create inflation just in a war, like in World War II. We have gas rationing. You have food coupons. Why? Because all the gasoline gets shipped off to Europe to put in tanks or to put in airplanes or put in ships. So when you have policies that are declaring war on something, you divert resources. So we had a war on COVID. We have a war on carbon, an energy war. If I decide I don't want you to burn coal or oil, then I drive up the price of energy. If I decide I don't want you to show up in your office, I drive up the price of production. If I decide that I want to fight this COVID war and I'm going to change the way the economy works, then I'm going to drive up the cost of everything else. So we've got lots and lots of wars, right? You've got a culture war, you've got a war on office work, you've got a war on carbon, you've got a war in the Ukraine. The war in the Ukraine has escalated, right? It's not just a war in the Ukraine, it's really a kind of a quasi-economic war on Russia. So when we actually imported Russian sanctions, we cut the amount of gasoline or the amount of fuel available in energy. We drive up the price of energy. So every single time you actually put a public policy in place, you create inflation. People get into positions of power and they want to do good. And so they do good by issuing edicts, executive orders, policies, regulations, and they think that the regulations will make things better. They believe that if you enter into government and politics, you believe the political process is a way to make the world better. So what you have is political organizations, centralized organizations getting progressively more powerful. And as they get more powerful, people do things, right? And I think if you roll the clock back to Ronald Reagan, he would say, government's the problem, government's not the solution. So let's take nuclear energy, right? The cleanest form of energy is nuclear energy. It's the cleanest, probably the safest. Nobody died at 3 Mile Island. We can't hardly trace a death from nuclear energy in the US. And yet we haven't built a nuclear power plant since the creation of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission 50 years ago. And in Germany, they shut all theirs down.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Want to learn more about millionaires? Watch these 2 videos.